You probably already know that using a handheld router is great for cutting edge profiles and even some joinery like mortise and tenon joints. But have you ever considered using a handheld router to cut pocket hole joinery? Well, I had not thought of that until recently. I was looking through some old publications of ours and I found this pocket hole jig. It's a pretty cool jig and I wanted to give it a try, so I built one myself. The jig is basically just a plywood case that houses a swinging carriage system that holds the router, and it swings a straight bit up into a workpiece to create the pocket. And then after the pocket is created, there's a fence here with an angled hole that guides a long drill bit to create a pilot hole for the screw. Now that we know how it works, let's talk about how easy the construction is. Like I mentioned, it's just a plywood case. The top and bottom have dados in them to connect the sides. I cut these dados over at the table saw using a dado blade sized perfectly to fit my 1/2-inch plywood sides. Then the top has this slot that has clearance for the swinging bit. To create the slot, I drilled 2 holes, one on each end of the slot at the drill press, and then cleaned out the majority of the waste with a jigsaw. Then, to complete the box, there is a pair of stretchers, one on the back here and one on the front. The one on the back here has a hole in it, and that's sized perfectly to fit my shop vac hose, and that'll collect any chips that are spewing out the back. The one on the front here not only helps to keep the box from racking, but it also acts as a stop for the carriage system as it comes forward. The final part of the top is adding this fence. It's pretty simple, but I do need to drill an angled hole in here to guide my bit. So I first ripped a beveled edge on the back here so that I could use it as the drill press to angle my workpiece and then drill the hole all the way through. Now that hole does house a brass tube, and that's going to help guide the bit and keep the hole from wearing out and getting wallowed out over time. The last thing I added to the fence was this toggle clamp, and that's just used to hold my workpiece in place, keep it from slipping around. Now that wraps up the case construction, so let's take a look at the carriage. It's pretty simple as well. It has 2 1/2-inch plywood sides that are cut in a shape so that when it tips back, it has a stop. When it tips forward, it has a stop as well. I cut the rough shape of my workpiece out of the bandsaw and sanded it smooth to final shape. Then I used this piece as a template and then stuck it down with double-sided tape and flush trimmed it at the router using a flush trim bit. So after my sides are complete, I connected them at the front with a piece of dowel that I can use as a handle to swing the carriage forward and back. And then at the top, they're connected with a piece of hardboard, and I screwed the router base to that. After everything was connected for the carriage, I was ready to mount it with bolts on either side here, and that'll be used to pivot the carriage back and forth. So now with the jig constructed, let's set it up and try it out. Now, as I mentioned before, the carriage is going to swing the router bit up into the workpiece to create the pocket. So the first thing I need to do is set the height of the router bit. So I'm going to swing it into its final position at its highest here, and that's going to be right at 1/2 inch. The other thing to note is I'm using a 3/8 inch spiral upcut bit, and that's going to give me the cleanest cut possible. Now I have a center line here scribed on my fence, and that's going to help me set up my workpiece. And I'm just going to kind of bring this in here. I'm not too concerned about where this pocket's going to be. Lock it in place with the toggle clamp, and I'm ready to get started. Now, with the workpiece still clamped in the same position, I'm going to bring in my drill bit. As you can see, I'm using a 6-inch long, 1/8 inch drill bit. I'm going to drill my pilot hole. See there, it cut a nice pocket, and then the pilot hole. There you go, a great way to make pocket holes with your router.
Woodsmithplans.com. Hundreds of professional, high-quality woodworking plans right at your fingertips. Every single plan is presented as an easy-to-download digital package that includes pages of step-by-step instructions, full-color photos, illustrations, and exploded views, retail sources for hardware and supplies, plus a cutting diagram and materials list. Many plans offer handy video overviews and guides. Plus, we're proud to offer our plans in both standard and metric. Everything is here, from gorgeous heirloom furniture projects to handy shop projects and upgrades, clever, cost-effective storage solutions, as well as weekend projects and accessories that are great for gifts, all fully searchable and categorized for easy browsing. Woodsmithplans.com, everything you need for building fine woodworking projects.